All right, everyone, welcome to the FFL Haven Team Huddle. I'm your host, Mac Agobor, and let's get started. And we have a special guest today, so I want to make sure we use his time valuably. Just real quick, if there's someone that you know should be on this and isn't, please get them on because the most important training is the one that you missed. And there are people that need this, and the most people that need it, sadly, aren't the ones here. So shoot a last minute text out to them because the information that you're going to get, we always say it's usually you're preaching to the choir. A couple announcements. The national conference, it's coming up. It seems further away than it really is. And this is what's going to be the game changer. If you're going, be a leader. And a leader's job is simply this. You are able to influence someone to do something that they wouldn't have done were you not present. So if you're already leading yourself there, wonderful. Next step is get someone to come with you, right? So get registered, and people can talk all day long, but until they've either shed some money out, they're not committed. So if they've already committed with the registration, fflconvention.com, next step is to book your flight or book your room, whichever one comes first. And we've already made it accessible, guys. You know, we bought the 3 or 4 Airbnbs. So make it easy for them and just extend that invitation. This is one of the great areas where you can resurrect. So some of y'all not religious, resurrection is real. The national conference will resurrect the dead. So if there are agents who you didn't know if they had a pulse, if you get them to the convention, you will see a miracle. Figure it out, just get them there, and trust me, we'll make it happen. So let us jump in to our special guest, and it's someone that I've had the chance to know for, a good while. We've all been through the School of Hard Knocks, and someone I consider my brother, to be honest with you. So I'm pleased to see how he's grown. It's funny too, because when I look back, I remember the time when we were doing a business together and he was asking me for advice, which is so weird. And I'm like, now he's the man, which is so awesome to see. So that said, all kudos to our special guest and trainer, integrity partner, Mr. Steven Yee. Can you hear us okay, Steven?
Loud and clear. You hear me okay?
I hear you fine. I appreciate you being on. And I want to have this to be more of like a locker room. Just talk to us as if, you know, we were your kids and you were raising us to grow in the business. I want to be real. You've done these so many times. And so we want to ask, a lot of the times agents are born in a Ferrari and they don't know that they were born in a Ferrari. So if we can just start off, maybe just share your story real quick, where you came from, not only physically, but what happened mentally, because I know people start FFL on the same line, but they come with different baggage. So where did you start from and how did you get here? And what I'm liking you to go to is what's the difference between the FFL today versus the FFL when you started?
Great question, Mac. And I appreciate you for having me on, man. One of the things, I've known Mac for like 15 years. When I was a knucklehead, I was like 19 years old at the practice company. So to be able to see, your success too, Mac, being able to transition careers and be able to go Hall of Fame and protect a lot of families and run a successful business like yourself too. The respect is mutual, I guess you can say. So my story is real simple. I got started here in 2018, so about 4.5 years ago. And what happened was I was coaching high school basketball, reffing basketball games just to make ends meet. I had started a network marketing business, didn't do very well there. I tried internet marketing, didn't do very well there. I tried day trading, Forex, Amazon, drop ship, you name it, I probably tried it. Probably give you the good, bad, and ugly of all of it, right? And I remember I talked to my buddy Joe, and he said, "Hey, man, I think you should do this insurance thing with me." And I was like, "Cool. What is it?" And he kind of explained what final expense and mortgage protection was. And I was like, "Dude, I'd buy that." You know what I mean? Like, I don't have a home yet, and I'm not old enough to die yet, but I'd buy that. And he was like, "Cool, well, you got to get your life insurance license." And I was like, why would I want to do that? You know what I mean? Like, nobody wakes up one day and goes, "Hey, I want to grow up and be a life insurance agent." You know what I mean? But for those of you that are taking notes, write this down. The financial service industry has created more millionaires than any industry in the world. More than real estate, more than tech, more than anything. Financial services has created more millionaires than any other industry. Don't believe me? Go fact check me on Google. right? And so I got started and I got my teeth kicked in. My first 14 appointments, I went 0 for 14, right? So for those of you that have made a sale before your 14th appointment, congratulations, you're better than me. And people ask me all the time, like, why didn't you quit? And it was really simple. The answer was because I knew the two guys that recruited me. And if they figured it out, I mean, I didn't think they were that much smarter than me. I'd figure it out too eventually, you know what I mean? And the choice was like, go back to what? Go back to getting cussed out in high school basketball games or in adult league games where people that played were worse than me, but because I needed the money, so I reffed their games, so they were cussing me out. You know what I mean? Like, go back to that? No, I'm good, man. And so we pushed through that and got good at this. And it took a while. It's like learning a new language. It's like learning a new sport. And in the beginning, you're going to be bad before you're good. And so when I got started, man, Mac, to tell you the truth, this is how fascinating this was, right? Check this out. So when we had gotten started, they were like, hey, we need you to send $1,600 to this lady in Texas, and then she's going to get you some leads in like 3 weeks. I was like, what? Number one, I ain't got no $1,600. I had like $600 to my name. And I was like, send them how much? And I got to wait how long? You know what I mean? And I say that because that ain't the case now. Y'all can go to the CRM and buy leads today, call leads 20 minutes from now, and even possibly make your first sale before the end of the day. Back then, they had to mail the clients. I had to wait for them to come in. You know what I mean? We only had, I mean, with my budget, with what I had was $600, I only could run old stuff, age stuff. Now for $600, you can still get 50, 60, real-time internet leads that are brand new, immediate to you, right? Like we didn't have that. And so like back then, contracting, like some of y'all go, man, the contracting process sucks. Wait till you see what I'm going to tell you. We had to print off every carrier's contracts, which was about 25 to 40 pages, hand write them, and then fax it in. And the worst part was if they couldn't read your writing, they wouldn't contract you. Send it back, rewrite it again. And we didn't have e-apps. Everything was paper. So if you wrote like a fifth grader like I did, they couldn't read your social. They didn't know if it was a 2 or an 8. Does that make sense? And so like, that's where we were. Where you guys have it now is so much better. And like most people don't, like Max said, is like, you don't know any better. And the best thing I can tell you is you're primed in a position where you are today. Like I promise you, if I had a choice to get started back then versus now, I choose now every day of the week. I promise you, I would have been way more profitable, got off the ground quicker, and it wouldn't have taken me 14 appointments to sell my first one, right? Because the lead cost is so much more inexpensive. I can get at that so quickly. Does that kind of make sense?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Tell me this, Steven. Obviously, they don't know what they don't know. It's difficult to kind of think about it. If you were born in today's Ferrari called FFL, from start to finish, what would you do to go from 0 to a Hall of Fame producer helping over 400 families a year? Just what would you do day one right now? And let me make it even more interesting. Let's say you had very little money to your name. How would you do it?
Easy. It's so easy. Here's why. I'll give you a few things. Number one, back then I was never able to do it virtually. We did everything face-to-face, right? Number two, so like if I lived in Southern California where it's impossible to get leads, right? Because Southern California is like number one in every market, not just insurance, right? So like real estate, solar, everything. Usually Southern California is the number one hotspot for every industry, right? So I lived in Southern California. I want to be able to get leads. If I were doing it today, I'd be able to run virtually, get leads anywhere I want. That's part one. Number two, back then I had a hand dial. We didn't have systems to call, automate your dialing, phone burner, ringy, whatever. We didn't have any of that. We manually dialed people. So back then when we were like, yo, make 300 calls a day, that was like a legit 8-hour day. Phone murder, shoot, 2.5 hours tops. Are you kidding me? You can get so much more done. Lead costs back then, because I got started, with direct mail, because that's all we had. Leads were 60, 70, $80 a pop as a brand new agent that has zero skill. Now you can get a lead for $10 brand new, exclusive to you. Like there's just so many things I would do. And so like what I would do, write this down for those of you taking notes, I will make up in numbers what I lack in skill. And every single one of you lack in skill right now, because unless you came from another insurance company, there's no way you're going to be good at this immediately. And so what I would do is I buy more than I need. So like I always told people, for every dollar I spent, I made about 4 to 5 back. That was my numbers. When I was brand new, I probably spent $1 to make 2 to 3, which is still great because where else can you make that type of return? Right. And so like what I would do is I would overload my lead flow. Like Brandon Kitchings calls it stacking the deck in your favor. I would get more than I need because I knew I was going to mess some up. Let me give you an example, right? I like sharing stories. So like Brandon Kitchings, he's a Hall of Fame producer now. But when Brandon was brand new, we got on a lead strategy call. I was like, hey, dude, whatever you do not buy 20 leads, buy 40 minimum. Because this was when we had Facebook final expense leads and they were minimum $25 to $30 a pop, right? So he gets off the phone with me and he buys 20 leads. Exactly opposite of what I told him, right? He makes the first call. Guy doesn't answer. Makes the second call. Guy says, not interested. Makes the third call. I already got it taken care of. Makes the fourth call. Guys tell him to go F off. Now what happens is he's a quarter of his batch in and he's like sweating bullets, right? He goes through that entire batch. He had 1 appointment out of the 20. He didn't sell anything. He's pissed off. He calls me 2-3 days later. Hey man, I bought those leads. They suck, right? I didn't get anything out of them. What do you think I should do now? I'm like, how many leads you buy? He goes, 20. And I start laughing. He was like, why are you laughing? I was like, I told you not to buy 20. I told you to buy 40. Simple instruction, be coachable, right? And he's like, what do you want me to do? I was like, I want you to buy another 40. He was like, I just bought 20 and it didn't work. You want me to go buy 40? I was like, yes, because if you would have bought 40 the first time, we would have had this conversation. Right? He goes buy 40. He protects 6 families. Rest is history. Why do I tell you guys this? Because everybody thinks they're so good when they're brand new, when they're not. And you need to double up because you're not as good as what everybody else is. You're not as good as Mac, who protected 400 families his first year, right? Mac had a background in sales. He's done kitchen counter, belly to belly sales, sit downs, whatever you want to call it, right? If you haven't done that, right? Like Mac in the beginning need more leads than he does today. Fact, Matt?
Yep.
Agree with me? Like he doesn't have to spend the same dollar amount as when he was a brand new agent today. Why? Because he's gotten better. Well, this is brand new for most of you guys. So like, to be honest, y'all suck. That's why they call it success. SUCKCESS. Success. You will suck before you're good. There's no other way to say that. It's actually a part of the journey, right? And so I say that because like, if you cannot embrace that part, you're going to hate this. I promise you. Because nobody in their right mind looks forward to picking up the phone, calling 300-400 people a day, and then dealing with objections and rejection. Nobody looks forward to that. But in order to have something you never had, you got to go do something you've never done.
100%.
And the phones is where it leads us to that ability to have that. Does that make sense, Mac? Hopefully that helps.
No, absolutely. So we got the lay of the land. You know, you got the virtual aspect, so you would be able to maximize on leads. You can go, you can use phone burner, maximize your effectiveness. Lead costs are lower, so it's easier to buy more leads. And then you could just simply max out and double your rate of failure, and that would make sure that you succeeded. Well, let me just go ahead.
So like, think about this though, right, Mac? Like, this is like, oh man, like this is I think the difference between myself and most other people. Okay. So like I went into the week going, I can spend $1,000 a week on leads when I got a little bit better, right? Because I didn't have 1,000 when I started, but let's just say made a few sales. Now I got a little bit of money, and I went into the week like I can put $1,000 into leads this week. Here's the difference: if a lead vendor had a discount, and let's just say 40 leads cost you $1,000, and at that week 40 leads only cost you $600. Most people, Mac, go, I bought my 40.
Right.
They spent 600. See, I wouldn't do that. I'd be like, oh, it's discounted. I'm getting 60 leads. That cost me the same 1,000.
Right.
I needed more shots. Like, I'll give you an example. I coached basketball, right, for a long time, varsity boys. I played basketball. If I gave you 20 shots from half court, Mac, and go, if you don't make at least 4 of them, I take your family. Versus I go, hey, man, I'll let you shoot the ball as many times as you want. And you shoot 1,000 shots. Just make 4. Which one's easier?
Right.
Unlimited shot attempts, right? That's why you want to load up. You need to load up because you will make up in numbers what you lack in skill. Flat out. A brand new agent's not going to learn how to overcome. I already got it taken care of. Compared to someone like you. A brand new agent's not going to be able to flip a client that goes, I'm not interested, like someone like you. But guess what? You only learn by doing more. Like, I can't swim. It's not a mistake. I know this. You don't have to tell me, right? But like me watching you swim, Mac, I would learn a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be like, okay, you got to throw your arms, kick your feet. Got it. If I read a book on swimming, okay, I can understand concepts. If I watch videos, I would still learn a little bit too. You want to know what's the best way for me to learn? Is you throw me in the pool and I got to figure it out.
Right.
So you can practice overcoming objections, reading the manuals, doing all that stuff all you want. But until you actually get a live client that gives you that objection, you're never going to learn it for real.
Right. Right.
Which is the reason why you got to immerse yourself in the activity.
It's so true, Steven. Let me ask you this. I'm going to throw you rapid fire. Now, just real talk. Someone's new in the business. You kind of gotten your teeth kicked in. Have you ever thought about quitting?
Every day of the week.
What kept you from hitting that bell and saying, I'm done?
Simple. What was I going to go do? What was I going to go do? Go ref high school basketball games again? Go ref adult league games?
Yeah.
God, today sucked. Right? But like, think about this. Like, we're sitting in our house for most of you, or like myself and Mac or whatever, might be in an office. It's AC'd or their heaters on, so we're not like dying, right? And we're making phone calls on a chair. Bro, I worked in retail when I was like 16, and I stood for like 8.5 hours a day. That sucked because that was exhausting. You know what I mean? Like what was I going to go do?
Yeah. Yeah.
What was my backup plan? And like, what happens is it sucks all the way. I'm gonna let you know, like, it sucks every day. You want to quit every day you want to quit. But what happens is you grow. So what sucks now doesn't suck later. And then like you lift the lid off and like things suck differently, if that makes sense. It's like, am I willing to, like, I'll give you an example. The amount of BS that I deal with on a daily basis. Okay. If you go, I pay you $100,000 a year to deal with that. I'm like, nope, I'm done, out. You go, I pay you $1 million a year to deal with the BS. I'm like, I'm in. Why? Because everybody has a price of how much BS they're willing to deal with.
Right.
Right. So like you handling the objections, getting the rejection, getting the objections on the phone, you go, this sucks. But if you made a few sales, got a few deposits, like Rose's story, which is phenomenal. It's like, get on the phone and make some sales there and get cussed out once in a blue moon, or go back to her previous life. And she's like, no, I'm good. I'm good. Perspective.
Right. Would you say, Steven, that a lot of people, because they have plan B's, C's, G's, and F's, they haven't burned bridges? That's what's holding them back?
Yeah, because what happens is the person that always goes, if this doesn't work, I have something else. It's always going to linger in the back of their mind. They call the phone differently.
Yeah.
They call the phone differently. As much as they don't want to admit it, they do. Because they're like, I'm just going to do this today because like once I can say that I got through it, I'm just going to call Mac at the end of the day and be like, yo, man, this doesn't work. And I got a backup plan.
Yeah.
Compared to the guy that doesn't have an alternative route, like he has to make this work. You know what I mean?
All the difference.
You sound differently. Like, think about this. I've done this with my staff, right? So like, I've done this with my staff. I've done it with agents before as well. But like, I'm sorry, this is really, really gory. I apologize. I will never do this as a human being, but I'm going to like give you an example. So I apologize now. Forgive me. If I had Mac right next to me, I'm in his office. I'm in the table in the back. And I kidnapped his family. And we have guns to their head. And I'm like, Mac, if you don't book 15 appointments by the end of the day, I pull the trigger. Is he going to call the phone differently than if I didn't say that? Of course he is. Sense of urgency, fear of loss. But some of us don't dial that way though. See, like I was broke. So like I didn't want to be there ever again. So I put myself in that situation every day. Does that make sense? Like sometimes I talk about money and I'm like, I hide money in different accounts because if I see a dollar amount, I'm gonna go, oh, I should spend it, instead of going, hey, there's zero, I need to go to work, right? I had to trick myself to work every day, playing little games like that. Because at any, like I always talked about this, there's 3 lines, okay? There's crisis mode, there's survival mode, and then there's success mode, okay? Most people fluctuate between crisis and survival their entire life. But here's what's fascinating. If you're not on the crisis line because your back's not against the wall yet, I gently wish that upon you, because rock bottom, back against the wall, has created more millionaires than anybody else. It is what it is. But the same effort that it takes for someone to go from crisis to survival is the same effort it takes to go from survival to success. The difference, Mac, is in the middle where survival is, you have an enemy. It's called comfort. And what happens is you have a little money in your bank. Your bills are paid. Your back's not against the wall anymore. So guess what? You take off the gas. See, I had to trick myself to pretend that when I had 50 grand in the bank that I didn't have any. Because it's really easy not to work when you have 50 G's in the bank.
Right.
Really easy. I don't want to doubt today. Well, who the hell says I have to? Especially when you're your own boss, right? So I had to lie to myself and move money, hit it. I pull up my bank statement every day and it said 0. And I'm like, back on the phone.
Back in crisis mode. You know, Steven, it sounds like what you're saying is, people's greatest strength is their greatest weakness. For all of us, greatest strength is that we were born in the best country in the world, America. Now, when you say things like, my family's in the back and they'll pull the trigger, some people thinking that's some kind of movie. I came from Africa and there are some crazy folks out there. Some of you, it's just a movie, but there's some crazy.
Real.
It's real.
It's real.
They went to schools and they would kidnap the girls. So I was able to get myself in crisis mode very, very easily because I lived being broke. I've been lived hungry. For some of you, you've never lived that. If your parents don't have enough money, the government got you. I didn't grow up that way. And so your biggest challenge, if I'm hearing you right, Steven, is forcing yourself into a crisis mode when America has you, right?
Right.
And if you can push yourself that way, you unlock a different part of yourself where you can dial the phones better.
Dude, think about this, right? Like my parents are immigrants. I'm Chinese, for those of you that don't know yet, right? Just kidding. Haha. So like I lived in a place called Rolling Heights in Southern California. Here's what's fascinating about Rolling Heights. It's 80% predominantly Asian, okay? But there's 3 levels. So when you get off the freeway, it's the freeway to the main drag, which is Colima. Then there's Colima to Pathfinder, which is the second main drag. And then there's the hills, okay? So there's 3 sections, okay? So the poorest section is the first section. The second section was like middle class. And then above Pathfinder was all the multi-million-dollar homes. You want to know what's fascinating, Mac? I lived there for, 15 years. I watched people, immigrants, go from the bottom to the middle to the top in less than 5 years, time and time again.
5 years.
I watched Americans who were born here live in the same homes 30, 40 years. Dude, because immigrants, like it's not different. They don't call America land of the free, home of the brave for no reason. You don't believe me? Go live in Russia. Go live in China. Go live in Africa. It ain't the same, dude. And so like what y'all have in hand, y'all can get out of any financial situation you want. Any is easy if you want it to be.
That's good.
And once again, the thing that we battle is complacency. Good enough, but not great enough. Bad enough, but not as horrible. You're right there in the middle, which is comfortable, right? And see, that was what I battled every day, man. If I can share anything with you, comfort is the number one thing that stops you from growing.
And we're talking mindset. And thanks for sharing that. Let me ask you, when you came to FFL, you were in the mix, grinding, working in your business. When did it turn the corner for you? Because obviously we all got to go work and do it. But when did you finally hit the light bulb and say, you know what, I got a tiger by the tail? And what did that look like? What happened that triggered that? And then what did you do to actually put fuel in the fire?
That's a great question. So like people always go like, that's the day that changed my life, right? I don't have that day. I don't. I don't know if most people do, just being honest with you. I think what happens is you gradually do things correctly. And then eventually you take a look back and go, oh, damn, that's been a mile ago.
Mm-hmm.
Slight edge, simple daily disciplines added over a long period of time, difference between a winner and a loser, right? Here's what happened. I just went to work because I didn't have any money. And so like when I came here, my goal was to pay for my wedding, which was 3 months away. I had a $40,000 wedding and I had 40 grand, right? There's no damn way I was going to go get a job and have that job paid for my wedding because no one's going to advance you that type of money. So we got to go get something that's performance-based, which is this, right? Sales. And so I went to work. First month, protected 5 families. Second month, 12 families. Third month, 29 families. Okay. All of a sudden, weddings paid for. Guess what I did my 4th month, Mac?
What was that?
6. You know why? Comfort. I accomplished my goal. And now my body or my mind and, you know, everything about me is going to bring me back to comfort. I achieved what I needed to achieve. You want to know what made me get my butt back to work? My wife came home crying every day for 2 weeks because she hated her job. While I was at home at like 4 in the afternoon, I already made a few sales for today, kicked up my feet watching Netflix. She's like, what'd you do all day? I was like, sold a few policies. What about you? Right. And she's crying. And then I was like, you know what? Like, apparently we're married now. So I think I'm kind of like, we're supposed to do this together. And I was like, what do you make? Like, I actually didn't know. We were newlyweds. I was like, what do you make? And she told me. And I was like, that's like 1.5 policies, 2 policies for me. I was like, how about you just walk from that misery and then I'll just work a little bit harder and then you don't have to go through that ever again. Thinking I'm a good husband, right? So I went to work, brought her home, put the pressure on. Now I got to go perform. And then what happened was we stuck around 20 families help for a while. We're doing a meeting in Southern California. And Sean Mike brings up all the sales managers. At the time, there was only like 4, 5, and there was like 20 people in the meeting.
And just so people know what a sales manager is, for those that are brand new, how many families are you helping them up?
50. So now if you went sales manager, like they wouldn't even bring you up on a panel. Right? Like now the panel is like 1,000 families minimum, right, which is fascinating. You just keep raising the bar. So like we get up there and he's asking everybody questions, different questions, right? And I'm like, man, I'm curious to see what he's going to ask me because I want to prepare for my answer. And he gets to me and he goes, Steve, you're up here again? Oh, man. And so he looks at the crowd and he goes, y'all want to know why Steve's up here? And I'm going like, I want to know why I'm up here, right? And he looks at the crowd and he goes, the reason why Steve's up here is because he's selfish. And if anybody knows who I am, that was like the last trait I would call myself.
Right.
Like I would take my shirt off my back for you. Like for those of you that know, right? And I was like, selfish stuff, right? And he looked at me and he goes, Steve, your bills paid? I was like, yeah. You got a little money in the bank? I was like, yeah. He goes, life's good? I was like, life's good. He goes, Steve's selfish. Steve's taken care of, but he don't want to take care of nobody else. He's selfish. And at that moment, I was like, oh my God, I need to go help others. Get to where I'm at. Save them from the modern day slavery of a job, right? And that was when I took my production from 20 to 40. Easy, overnight. I wouldn't say that day did it, but that day ushered me into doing it. It was like a consistent thing, one after the other, that happened. That just, I looked up and I was like, oh my gosh, now we're doing this. Oh my gosh, now we're doing this. You know what I mean?
What did you actually do to take your production up?
Double my lead bill.
So
Remember,
you
dude,
actually
it's
double
like,
your lead bill.
yeah, that was it. I went from 1,000 a week to 2,000. That's not hard. Like I have agents that come to my office all the time. Fascinating. They protect 20 families a month. They go, Steve, I protect 20 families a month and I'm trying to get to 40. I don't know how. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, so what was your lead bill? And they're like, I spent $1,000. I was like, what did you do? I protected 5 families last week. I was like, got it. So in the last 2 weeks, you spent 2,000 and protected 10 families, right? They're like, yeah. I'm like, now do that in 1 week. Double your lead bill.
They're scared to, right? That's a challenge.
That's it.
They're afraid.
They're looking for some complex answer because they want a complex answer because they can't do it. So they can go, oh, the reason why I can't do it is because it's complex. If it was simple, everybody should be doing it. In my opinion, they should.
Got it. Now, when you double your lead bill, you're doubling your work, or are you just going through the leads faster?
See, I don't get emotionally attached to the leads.
Mm.
Kind of like what I was sharing with you guys about branding. When you only got 20 leads, you hold on to them leads with dear life.
Right.
Call the first one, guy says no. Woohoo, got 19 left, baby. Call the next one, guy tells you to go F yourself. Now you got 18. Now you're worried, right? You got 100, 200 leads. You don't care, dude. I'm only looking for the lookers.
Right.
And you book the ones that are supposed to be booked. That's it.
So it allows you to almost compress time because you don't
100%.
care. So you sell the people who are looking, which increases your number of families helped. You did it in the same time frame you would have done it.
100%. I was looking for the lookers. I wasn't booking BS appointments.
Love it. Love it. Let me ask you this, Steve. Your hardest, just maybe polarity here, biggest challenge in the business. Now, I want to kind of caveat that. Biggest challenge when you were brand new, biggest challenge where you were a manager leading a team, biggest challenge now as an integrity partner.
Biggest challenge as a producer was getting no-showed. So like, I always prided myself that if I had 10 appointments on the books, it was a guaranteed 5 families help. Oh my God. Mac, you've ran with me.
Yeah.
Dude, that's a home run.
Yeah.
When I was brand new, no, that wasn't the case. I have 10 appointments and go 0 for 10, which has happened many times. And like, those are the days you want to quit.
How long did that go through? How long did you have to go through that crap before you got better enough where that wasn't the case?
Dude, I went through it on my Hall of Fame run. It was just a numbers game. So like, here's what's fascinating. Okay. So I have agents that go, because they know me now. They didn't know me 2 years ago when I made that run.
Yeah.
They're like, bro, you said you booked 44 appointments in a week. I can't even get to 20. There's no way, bro. You're lying. Right.
Mm-hmm.
All right, here we go.
And real quick, Steven, for those of you that don't know, Steven Yee helped over 100 families in 1 month. 1 month to hit Hall of Fame. Hall of Fame is you've helped over 400 families a year. 1% of life insurance agents, maybe 2, ever do that.
Less than
Not
that.
even 2. Yeah.
Less than that. But here's what was fascinating. So I scroll back because I'm a big, I got to prove my point guy. I pull my calendar back and I screenshot it. And it said December 1st through 5th. 44 appointments on the books. Okay. And I think on a Thursday, like Tuesday, I sold well. Wednesday, I sold all right. Thursday, in the middle of me making this run where I'm already at my peak of selling insurance, I went like 0 for 9.
Wow.
Saturday, killed it. But that was the point. See, here's what people do though. After they go 0 for 9, they go, oh, this sucks. Not me. You know what I think? You know what happens after 0 for 9? 9 for 9. Seriously. That's what happens. Yeah. You know what happens after you have an 8 for 9 day? Ooh. Brace yourself because you're going to get kicked in the face the next 2 days. It's coming. It's a numbers game. I'm just outlasting the numbers. And my numbers always averaged out. 30 appointments, 20 sits, protect 10. Easy. But sometimes I protected 10 in a day. Sometimes it was a dogfight. Sometimes it was protect 2 people throughout 4 to 5 days. I didn't care. I was just trying to do 10 for the week.
Love it.
And so that was my biggest challenge as a producer. Biggest challenge as a manager. I think that was the funnest part, dude. Was like, Mac, you were in Phoenix when I sent my screenshot to everybody that when our team was at EVP status, protecting about 500 families a month, I was still the #1 producer.
Yep.
And like the crazy thing is I had so much respect in the agency because like all the guys that were working, I was outworking them. So they never even thought about me making an override.
Right.
Because I was writing more than them.
Right.
And so like when they called me for help, they knew I knew what I was doing because I was whooping their, you know what? You know what I mean? And it's no surprise that the year after I went Hall of Fame, 7 people in our group went Hall of Fame. Because it was like I laid out the blueprint for you to go follow. They like when Matt Goodrich was 85 families out in December, he called me. Why? Because that's exactly where I was last year. So I gave him the blueprint and then he goes and smashes it.
Yep.
Right? You can't teach what you don't know. And so like some of y'all are wishing this business to be easy. You're like, man, I hate getting the no's. Man, I hate getting cussed out on the phone. Man, I hate getting no showed. You can't teach it though if you want to build a big team. How can I teach Mac how to overcome a day of 0 for 9 if I've never had it? Mac calls me, dude, man, today was brutal, man. I got kicked in the balls, dude. It freaking sucked, man. Like this was horrible. I want to quit so bad. Sorry, Mac, never had that. You suck. I don't.
Right.
Rather than going, dude, been there, done that. Let me tell you what you need to do. You need to double down because your next day in the field, show up to every single one of them. Promise you're going to close every single one of them.
Bam.
Because that's facts.
Right.
You know what I mean? So like but I can't tell you that if I didn't experience that.
That's good. That's good. What about as an integrity partner? I mean, tides have turned. What is the biggest challenge? Is it that complacency? I mean, for some that don't know, what is integrity? Because we have some people that are brand spanking new. And what does that look like?
So integrity, the integrity partnership is exactly what it is. It's a partnership with you and a private equity company. If your business is big enough and you're profitable and your volume is where it needs to be, they will make an offer to purchase your business. There's only 24 partners out of the 18,000 agents we have at Family First Life.
Is that because you're special?
No, I just worked harder than everybody else. Like, you want to know what's funny? So I had a guy reach out to me. He was supposed to come to my office on Tuesday, but he got sick. It is what it is. So he called me yesterday in the morning at 7 when I was already here, right? He was like, hey man, do you have any time for me today? And I was like, well, from 8 to 9:30, I'm doing this. From 9:30 to 11, I'm doing this. From 11 to 12:30, I'm doing this. From 12:30 to 1, I'm doing this. From 1 to 2, I'm doing this. All the way till like 5 or 6 o'clock. And I was like, whenever I have time, bro, I'll give you a call. And I didn't do it to be mean. I just wanted him to know like I didn't have time. And he literally texted me back. He goes, that's the reason why I'm not an integrity partner, because my schedule doesn't look like that. And I was like, dude, that's me now. This is me after I sold the business. You want to know what's crazy? And Mac, I don't know if you were here at the time. When I had just moved to Vegas, you had to have been because we ran together in SoCal. I was getting to the office at 5, taking pictures and telling everybody I was at the office at 5.
Right.
And I wouldn't leave until 5 or 6 anyways. First one in, last one out. Oh my God, that was so easy. And so when people go like, oh, how did you get integrity? I was like, bro, I just work more than you. You were working 8 hours a day. I was working 12 to 14. Easy. I was getting 2 days for your one. In like 1 year?
You're just out working everyone.
Oh my gosh.
That's what it sounds like.
That's all it was. And I was not just outworking them hard. I was doing it smart. Because most people work hard, but they do the same thing over and over again. So they're like treading water or they're in quicksand. The faster you run, the quicker the hole you dig.
Right.
I wasn't doing that. Right. And so like I had systems in place. I had people in place to assist me in the business, which allowed me to be able to have more time. Like, there's a high level conversation. We all have 24 hours in a day. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Not true. I have 40 hours in a day. Easy. And you're like, how? I have my 8 or 10. And then I have other 4 employees that also give me 8 to 10. So I have 40 hours in a day easily.
Leverage.
right? That's what I mean by working smart.
I love it. You know, some people go to school for 8 years, some 16, just to have their profession. You know, that's what I'm loving about what you're saying, Steven. There's no way of getting around paying the price.
No.
And some of us try to exit school, just like you leave school, you're middle of medical. You don't leave 3 years in. You don't leave when you're about to take your exam because you know there's a light at the end of the tunnel. But, you know, some of us, we get disoriented because we don't understand. How do you keep yourself focused when you're in the mix and you're going through the grind to be able to at least stay long enough, long enough to get good?
Dude, I might sound like a broken record, but what was my alternative? Dude, like, think about this, right? Like, you know this, Jim Rohn says you can change your life in 4 years. I thought that was a bunch of BS when I first heard it when I was younger. I really did. I'm not even gonna pretend. I really did, right? But in the time that some people can get a 4-year degree, I built $1 million a year business, whether I was there or not, in the same 4 years with zero debt. Like, what was my alternative? You know what I mean?
That was it.
Like, go get a job. Like,
what if you're in a position, Steven, just being, again, this is real talk. How do you create a non-negotiable situation? Some of us are in comfort. I mean, you know, what would you do to put yourself in that position where you almost transform?
so like you ask, like I've said this many times, like people go, you know, they say you gotta give up and go up. I'm like, no, that's not true. You gotta give up and grow up. Like, you gotta grow up as a person and then you go up. What do I mean by growing up? A lot of things. You might need to leave certain people behind. You might need to exit a circle. You might need to relocate where you live. You got to grow up. Maybe you might not be a millionaire because your mind doesn't know what to do with $1 million if you received it. Here's what I can tell you. This is factual. When I was 19, I wanted to be a millionaire. I'm glad I wasn't, because I didn't know what the hell to do with that money. Are you kidding me? Now I'm glad I am, because I probably know what to do a little bit, right? I got it when I needed to get it. And so, like, my whole thing is, what are you willing to give up in order to get that? See, I wasn't mistaken that I needed to give something up. When my daughter was born, I told my wife, how I'm like, hey, 2 options. I love us. This is why we're doing this. 2 options. I can either miss baby girl's first 2 years of her life, which she won't remember anyways, because most kids can't recall a memory prior to the age of 4. If you don't believe me, ask yourself what happened when you're 2.5. You can't pull it up, right? Psychology proven it. I went to school for psychology, for like part-time. I was like, I can miss those 2 years, or I can be at everything. But at the same time, when she's like 7, 10, 12, 14, 15, and she has dance recitals, piano recitals, sporting events, I can't be there. Why? Because I got to go work. I got to be like every other person in America. She's like, dude, go sacrifice. I'm like, I'm in. So like, when I got that okay, and when my family was like ready to rock with me, oh my gosh, do you know how easy it was? That's what I was doing it for.
I love it.
You know? And so I put my back against the wall and I locked myself in an office. And like, here's the thing. If I went to the office at 5 a.m. and then to do anything productive, the first question I would ask myself is, why the hell did I leave my house then? Why did I take time away from, at the time, the 2 people that I love the most? Now we have a third, right? Why did I take time away from them 2 to come to the office to watch YouTube videos? Seriously? No, dude, get on the phone, make some calls. Get on the phone, train some agents. Get on the phone, recruit some people. Whatever it might be, get productive. And so because I had already made that sacrifice, I had to grow up. I had to get very productive in the hours that I was working, because I felt guilty if I wasn't.
That's good.
And then when I was working, I worked hard in those 12, 14 hours so that by the time I got home to spend time with my family, I never felt guilty about work.
I love it. We got a question down here. We'll start with this. How do you overcome commission breath?
Dude, it's hard, especially when you're brand new. When I was brand new, I didn't have any money. So like I thought about closing everybody because I needed to. I think that's part of the reason why I went 0 for 14, honestly. And then what happens is you fail a few times and you go, okay, that doesn't work. adjust. When I started legitimately putting clients' interest over mine, I sold more. And here's what I mean. Mac, you've heard me say this. I used to talk people down in premium. Let me explain to you what I mean. Option 1, $200. Option 2, $150. Option 3, $100. They would pick option A. And I would be like, you shouldn't pick that option. I think you should pick option B, to tell you the truth. And then what happens is if I give you a call back in 3 months and your financial situation hasn't changed, then we'll supplement the difference. How about that? They're like, what the hell? I'm like, dude, I'm not a salesman. Because if I was, I'd probably push you for a $300-$400 payment. So let's just lock the middle one in. Okay. So they thought I had what they didn't think, because I actually did. They felt that I had their best interest at heart.
Right.
Here's what was fascinating. I put the app in for the $150 a month. I would call them back 3 months later. Hey, Steve, your insurance agent. Remember you wanted to pick the $200 option, right? You got the one that was $150 that I talked you down. Hey, you want to supplement the other 50? They're like, man, we're so glad we didn't. Flat tire, broken AC, blah, 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 whatever it was. Guess what? If I would have oversold, it would have charged back. But because I didn't, and I thought with them first, policy stayed on the books. And like, here's what's crazy, okay? Mac, you and I worked at a company where we sat down with someone for 45 minutes to an hour and we sold them at the highest level. We were getting paid $252 for that sale.
Oh,
which was like crazy because they talked about how much money it was. And it is, I guess. But dude, like if you sold someone $20 a month, it's still that.
Same.
How often do you get clients at that low of a premium though? Very rare.
Very rarely.
So even if I sold someone for $40-$50 a month, it was still $500 a pop.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like what was crazy though was when I got a little ahead and I was able to stash some cash and be able to have a little bit of money on the side and I didn't have commission breath anymore, dude, the premiums flowed because I legitimately didn't care if they were going to buy or not.
Yeah.
And like, that's a very good place to be in because forgive me, I'm horrible at giving some explanations. It's like dating.
And real quick, guys, commission breath is when you want to sell so bad, they can smell it on your breath.
Right.
You know, because it usually happens because you're broke.
It is what it is. Or you have a mortgage payment due or a car payment coming up, right?
Yeah.
And so like, this is a very good tip for those of you that are new in sales. Sales is like dating. The person that cares the least wins.
Yeah.
Like when you are the overbearing person, the clingy girlfriend, boyfriend, bruh, they feel it.
Mm-hmm. It's true.
You know what I mean? But like when you play hard to get, why is it the people that always play hard to get are always the ones that actually get them?
That's the truth.
Because they feel like they don't care. Same exact way I sold. Matt can tell you, I'd get in there, throw some numbers, throw on a piece of paper. You want or not? I'm out.
I love it.
And I would say stuff like, I'm not your son's significant other or your spouse. So like when you die, nothing happens to me, but something happens to him. So up to you. I don't really care. They're like, this Asian fool's nuts.
But it gives you because you're indifferent. Yeah.
You know, but I really wanted them to have that because I'm like, dude, I don't want this person sitting next to you to do a GoFundMe or be homeless when you die. Like, please do something for them. You know, but yeah, that's how I overcame that.
Let me ask you two other questions for time. There's two muscles that you're trying to build in FFL. A lot of people start off just trying to build that bicep of selling, and you get, decent at that. How do you start working on the recruiting bicep and building that at the same time? A lot of people feel, hey, I'm too young. I don't know anything. Can you, start working on, let's say, you're not the greatest at sales at this bicep. Could you start focusing on this and just be okay at this? How would you tackle that?
It's a great question. That's actually the number one struggle that most agents have. The first answer to that question is you got to know why you want to build first. And for me, I built because I didn't want to sell insurance for the rest of my life. I didn't want, we recruit people all the time, Mac, that are 60, 70 years old that tell us that they've been in the industry longer than we've been alive. And I'm like, God, they did it wrong. Because by the time I'm that age, I have like a beach house somewhere. off the grid. You don't even know who the hell I am. I'm not calling no damn job ad trying to get an insurance gig. So number one, I didn't want to be that guy. Number two, I wanted to build a business, a true business. As Robert Kiyosaki says, 500 employees, right? So I looked at that and switched the word to agents. And I was like, how can I build a big business to the point where this business runs with or without me, preferably without me? And that wouldn't work if I just sold. So I knew the reasons why I wanted to build. The other thing that I was scared of when I started selling was when I started building, I should say, is I didn't know how to lead people that were older than me. And then I had a mentor, matter of fact, a guy that you and I know very well, Chris. And he said, dude, just because they're older than you doesn't mean that they're more mature than you per se. He goes, they might be older than you by 20 years, but they had the same year repeated 20 times. So what you need to do, Steve, is like, they wouldn't ask for your help if they didn't think you can help them. You are the expert regardless of age. I was like, oh. So when I was 25 and these guys were like 40, 50, and I was outselling them and kicking their butt on the leaderboard, I was like, I got it. See, it's not age that speaks, it's production.
It's good. That's good.
Right? So my production maturity was a lot better than theirs. That's why they listened, which is why I always tell people you should sell at a high clip because it's easy to follow. And here's what I've always known, and this is just facts. Like Mac, we've said this, like if you and I get in an argument about selling and I protect 40 families a month and you do 12, I'm always right because I write more than you.
Yeah.
If you were right, you would write more than me. So if my stack's bigger than yours, then you're wrong and you got to listen.
Facts. And here's a Jason question. When you're running that many appointments and have a high clip, how do you, like Rosa, how do you build your team at the same time? How do you have time?
Staff. Remember, I didn't want to run. I didn't want to tread water. I didn't want to be in quicksand. So how do I buy time? You buy time with staff. You sell at a high clip so you can delegate some work. You got to remember, some of the stuff y'all do is just a waste of time. It honestly is. Trying to change a client's beneficiary? Shoot me now. You want to call America and find out if they take this med with that on hold for 45 minutes? No, I'm good. So you hire staff to assist you, right? So I wasn't mistaken that I sold at a high clip because I wanted to buy my time back. Because there's only 3 things that pay you really well at Family First Life. It's only 3. Those 3 things are number 1, selling. Number 2, recruiting. And then number 3, training the people you recruit to sell. If you don't do any of those 3 things, somebody else could probably do it. That's factual.
And a lot of people, they're scared to hire staff. That's the challenge because you got someone else that you're responsible for. I mean, do you suggest someone bite off more than they could chew? And that pushes them to kind of get in that non-negotiable mode. How would you go about doing it? Start part-time?
You can do it however you choose, but you remember I just told you that I like putting myself back against the wall as many times as I could, tricking my mind. That was the game.
Right.
I had 20 G's. Cool. What do I do now? Cool. Let me go get staff. Dumb. Let me go hire someone and be liable for them too on how they feed their family. Woo, pressure's on. Now, guess what? If you're an athlete, you thrive under pressure. Most people do, right? So I performed. I went from 20 to 30 because now I can cover their bills and mine. It forced me to do more, right? And like, you don't need like 15 employees. In the beginning, I had 1 for like 2 months. Then I had 2 for like a year. And then I had 3. And then I had 4. And I stopped at 4. I've had 4 for like the last 2 years, and it's been phenomenal.
Love it. So, guys, we're running out of time, but man, I appreciate you, Steve, allowing us just to live in your mind for a moment. Guys, Steven is one of those people who he just shares. There's so many facts. He forgets more than we can ever learn. So this will be recorded. So when the time is done, go back through and just listen to what he's saying. There's so much, and if all you heard training wise, well, what he said today, that would be sufficient. Would you agree, Steve, to go from 0 to Hall of Fame?
I hope so.
All right, guys. Next week, we'll have another guest speaker. Thank you for being on. For those that have been invited, we have a training that's going to be helping us as far as final expense. We'll jump on that next. Until then, guys, we'll see you guys next week. Let's just go out and just serve. See you guys.